my land, you
This is not your land. It belongs to these families.
land, you son of a bitch. I'm gonna kill you and the Palestinians. This is my land. God gave it to me. Nazi.
That's me driving towards an unauthorized outpost deep into the West Bank. And when I got to the outpost, I expected the family I was meeting with to hit me with an earful of ideology and a sermon on why the Jews deserve to live in this land more than the Palestinians do. Instead, we played music. We ate food from their land, and we talked more about the perks of living in the desert.
Close to Jerusalem, the best view, the best weather, close to my parents. Yeah. Excellent, it's perfect.
These people don't own guns, they don't lock their doors. I visited 15 settlements out here in the West Bank to find out what motivates the people who are at the forefront of one of the world's most difficult and protracted conflicts. The West Bank is home to 2.2 million Arabs and seen by the international community as the part of a future Palestinian state. But there are also more than 400,000 Israeli settlers living out here, which is about 5% of Israel's population. You can learn all about how they got here in the first part of this series. Many of the first Jewish settlers who trekked out here in 1967 were driven by a strong ideological mission to claim this land for Israel. But things have changed quite a bit since then.
Of last year. He carried them, okay, and then Murphy carried them to the playoffs.
Spend 10 minutes in a settlement today, and you sometimes feel that you could just as easily be in a New Jersey suburb.
Walker has been out the last 3 days because he's got a back problem and his wife is due.
We're here just to, play a game, have a good time.
Clean roads, big houses, quality parks, good schools, close by shopping, a university. You ask people why they moved out here, and instead of the original mission to push forward the Israeli state, you hear things like,
a very good educational system.
So there's a very nice country club.
We wanted to be able to have a bigger place.
It's a great place to raise kids.
It's a beautiful view, and it's our beautiful land, and I love looking at it all the time.
We were looking for a Jerusalem suburb that we could afford, that was a manageable commute.
Close to Jerusalem,
Extremely close to Jerusalem.
The quality of life is so much better. It has nothing to do with politics.
Having a little bit more quiet.
Most people here work in the city, and you come back here at night, you come back here in the afternoon, and it's just relaxing and quiet.
Between the puppet show for the kids, the bump-in bar mitzvah party, and the 100 other examples of seemingly ordinary suburban life, it's hard to remember that these settlers are living at the edge of an intense conflict.
Нет таких очередей, нет такой плотности населения, как в больших городах. Они видят в окно, они видят деревья и цветы, которые они сами посадили. Эти деревья большие я посадил, когда купил эту квартиру.
My wife and I had certain criteria. One was we wanted to walk out of our back door and be hiking in 5 minutes.
Now, of course, there's still ideology here. Many residents of these communities feel connected to the settlers' original mission to resettle the hills of the ancient Judean Samaria from the Bible, which they call
the cradle of our entire civilization. Yeah?
But ideological motivations for living out here are usually 4 or 5 items down the priority list, with quality of life reasons being the main drivers.
To tell you if my ideological reasons was the major motivation to move over, I won't lie, and that wasn't one of the major things. I wasn't trying to make a statement. I was trying to find a place that would be a good place, a safe place to raise our kids, and this was the choice.
It wasn't at all something that was like one of the criteria, but it happened to be a real perk.
Of course, the hardcore back-to-the-earth settlers still exist. Here I am with a guy who doesn't want his name or face in my video. He lives in another outpost, illegal even to the Israeli government. There's no baseball league or bagel shops in this community.
God promised to us that this is our land, and we can grow here if we listen to Him.
This renegade culture of taking over hilltops once characterized the settlement movement. But now, the zealous ideology that started the movement has been diluted by more practical factors like house prices and quality of schools. This real estate ad for a settlement community, I think, perfectly captures the blend of quality of life motivations with a hint of ideological fervor sprinkled in.
If you've always felt a deep yearning for Jerusalem, now is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity not only to stand within its gates, but also to build the home of your dreams there. The tranquility of a picturesque setting and crisp mountain air, with all the benefits and amenities that Jerusalem has to offer. Ramat Givat Ze'ev is adjacent to the city of Givat Ze'ev and is connected to Jerusalem via 2 main highways.
But make no mistake, there's still a conflict here, an occupation of land that has enormous impact on the lives of Palestinians.
It sounds paradoxical, but this just seems like the safest place in the world.
One of the reasons why life in many settlements is so peaceful and pleasant is that the government invests proportionally more public money into the settlement communities than it does in mainland Israeli communities. Schools in the settlements receive better funding than mainland Israeli schools in the form of better salaries for teachers and other educational benefits for the kids. Nearly 1/3 of all subsidized housing in Israel is in the settlements, even though only 5% of Israelis live there. And in the past, the government even ran a mortgage subsidy program that made living out here much cheaper than mainland Israel. And things like public transportation are cheaper for settlers than mainland Israelis. An Israeli think tank found that the government spends about $950 on each West Bank resident. That's more than double what it spends on people living in Tel Aviv or Jerusalem. The settlement enterprise has become a fixture of Israeli institutions and society, which helps explain why you don't need to be an ideological activist if you want to live out there.
I can't hide the quality of life that people are enjoying here, okay? I can't hide the fact that people are moving from the United States from very luxurious big homes and they choose to live in Efrat. And they're not suffering in Efrat, okay? They're managing to maintain a very similar quality of life.
On top of government support, lots of the gyms, theaters, and parks in the settlements are funded by foreign donors, usually Americans, with ideological motivations. So what you end up with are these attractive communities that feel totally ordinary and livable, but that are built on an ideological mission and that carry heavy political significance both domestically and internationally. Even these unauthorized outposts that are illegal under Israeli law enjoy a good amount of support from the government. Like this government-provided soldier to protect this illegal community, or a playground that's built by the government, as well as public waste and recycling collection, all in a place that has been deemed illegal by the government.
My house, the government built it. That's a fact. That's a fact.
These places are connected to public water and electricity. They're totally supported in spite of being unauthorized.
And we have here everything from internet to water to electricity to like everywhere.
But often to appease the international community, the government still tries to appear tough on these unauthorized settlements. Back on that illegal outpost, my contact tells me that the authorities show up about once a year to knock down a settler's house and then take a picture of it to show the world that they don't tolerate illegal settlements. But in reality, they clearly do.
And most of the reason is international political reason. International forces, international political stupid reasons.
Since 1967, there's been wide government support from both right and left-wing parties in Israeli politics, which both have separate reasons for supporting the settlers. And while this support is not the only or even the main reason why settlements are growing, it has surely helped turn the settler experience into a mainstream, livable, and often enjoyable situation. The original mission of the settlement movement was to claim land deep into the West Bank, preventing a Palestinian state. Here are the Palestinian population centers in the West Bank, and here are the settlements. Any proposal for giving Palestinians their own state now has to take into account the hundreds of thousands of Israelis living out here. No one seriously considers it possible to remove all 400,000 residents. And while negotiations are in a standstill, Israel keeps issuing permits and settlements continue to grow.
These whole peace talks are like two guys negotiating over a pizza while one of them is eating a pizza.
Just a few weeks ago, the housing minister announced that he foresees this region down here, called Gush Etzion, growing from 7,000 residents, which it is currently, to 500,000 in the next 10 years. Israeli settlements are universally condemned among the international community. But no matter what you think of them, it's hard to imagine that they're going away anytime soon.
What did you think that I was living in? You thought I was living in some sort of tent? That I was riding camels? What did you have in your imaginary picture the settlement movement? There are 500,000 people living here in solid homes.
Before 1996, there were 100,000 Jews living over the Green Line. Today, we're approaching 500,000. And that number is just growing. Jewish people have come home. That's.
This is my land.
This is not your land. It belongs to these families.
You son of a bitch. I'm gonna kill you and the Palestinians. This is my land. God gave it to me. Nazi.